Happy Monday, Practice community members. Welcome to this week's Monday message. This is a two-parter. In this week's message and next week's message, I want to share 10 more powerful questions than how does that make you feel? So I'm going to share 5 more powerful questions this week and 5 more next week. What is the problem with the question? It's a good question. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes we need to ask, how does that make you feel? But the problem with this as a default question is it's a dead-end question. How your client feels about their experience is not relevant to their future unless you want to make a case for keeping them where they are. When we ask somebody how something that they're working on in coaching makes them feel, you're getting a insight or an imprint of what this moment is conjuring up for them. But it doesn't do much for them in terms of what's possible. What are you without the feeling? What are you without the hook into the emotion of it? But what if we look at it from a more objective lens, if we could? Now, don't get me wrong. At times, how does that make you feel is a really useful question. If you understand the emotion behind why a client is where they are, or the emotional cost of their default future, which I'll share what that is in a second, then you'll tap into their true motivation for sitting in a coaching conversation with you. Our default future is the future that we are going to live into should nothing change today. And the best way to predict what's to come is to look at what has already happened. The best prediction of our future is our past, unfortunately, because we are creatures of habit and we do things on autopilot all day, every day. No matter how inspired, lit up, or possible a goal may seem to us, if we don't change our thinking, we don't get to change our feeling. And if we don't change our feeling, we don't change how something is embedded in the body or in the mind, which then creates all the habits and behaviors that go along with what's happened, which keeps it in play or in our life. So when we ask somebody how something makes them feel, we're getting some information, but we're not getting enough information by way to move them forward. So I want to share 5 more powerful questions then. How does that make you feel? So here are 10 that I like to use. We'll do 5 this week, 5 next week. These questions, I think, leave plenty of space for your client's emotional life, which is important, but also space for a new future. Something I described recently to one of my Awaken Your Life students was that one of the differences between coaching and therapy, common question, something that I think everyone who is a coach should consider and think about and have some understanding of, because your clients might ask you from time to time, and there are vast differences. But one of the differences is that in therapy, we center the work around whatever we might deem the wound or the wounding. It doesn't mean that the client is broken or traumatized or wounded, but we centralize the work around the problem. And in coaching, we centralize the work around the potential future, moving the potential woundings, past stories and traumas out of the way by changing our relationship to them. It's finding the path of least resistance in the future by renegotiating our relationship to our past. That's the difference. And so when we ask a client, how does that make you feel? We're taking a little pit stop on the way with those wounds or experiences. But if we linger there too long, we're not going to do much to help that person move forward. So the first question, these are not in any order. These are just 10 more powerful questions. What is the cost of keeping the story around? This question works because it assumes that there is a cost that they're paying to keep the story in play, but they may not be aware of the cost. So what is it? What is the cost if the thing that you're contending with never changes? If this thing is in play in your life, 6 months from now, a year from now, 12 years from now, what is that going to cost you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically? Second question, who do you get to keep being by staying where you are? You know, the client is not where they are by accident. They have created that. It's actually a high functional strategy to live your life the way you're living it every single moment. So this question works because it brings out the identity they have assumed that is giving them something, but also keeping something out of or away from their life. So when you ask someone, who do you get to keep being, you get to elicit from them the strategy of the identity that they need to maintain at all times, probably to keep themselves safe and belong to themselves, but also the communities they've chosen to connect with. Okay, a third question. Who do you need to be to step into a new future? This question works because it brings out the new identity they would have to adopt. And identity is the thing that we are being that determines what we're doing, which creates what we are having. So who do you need to be in the future? That's going to create the new actions and habits we have to put into play. A fourth question, what specifically is important about this? Whatever the topic, the conversation, the story, the problem, the thing that the conversation or the fullness of coaching is centralized around, what is important about it? This question works because it brings forward more than how they feel, but why it matters. What is the meaning behind this thing that is so important to you? There is certainly meaning behind it if it's in their life. And a fifth question, how do you know this problem is a problem? Sounds like a silly question, but I like to get from my clients from time to time. Basically, I want them to defend their problem. Tell me why it's a problem. Tell me why it's a problem that you continue to go back to and live out over and over and over. This question works because it elicits what specifically is problematic. What about that thing you're experiencing is a problem? And you get them to tell you all the ways in which the problem shows up in their life and for how long it's been there. So those are 5 more powerful questions on how does that make you feel. Next week, we'll look at 5 additional. And in the meantime, if this content this week and the content over the last couple of weeks, as well as that 21 Days of Powerful Coaching, if you've got a chance to go through that program, it's a free course, which I'm going to leave open through the month of May. If you got a chance to go through that, then you might be interested in Awaken Your Life, which is a 200-hour Master Life Coach training program I run twice a year. And our spring cohort has a couple spots left, and it starts in just a few weeks on May 18th. So if you're interested in that program, you've heard rumblings of it, you've talked to someone who's gone through that program, hang on here for a few more minutes. I want to share a little bit about the insides of what goes on inside of that 6-month program. There are 6 modules inside of Awaken Your Life. The first module is the Way of Transformation. We kick off the program with 4 days on preparing yourself and the people you serve for deep change. That's where we do all of the foundational work. And inside of that foundational work is your container setting skills, your active listening, and your powerful question skills. The 3 primary things that is going to be wrapped around the entirety of your coaching process, you learn right there in the first week of the program, in addition to a ton more content, which is on the website if you want to look at the topics in detail. Then we move to module 2, the Way of the Mind. Inside the Way of the Mind, we're looking at our mental life. So our thoughts, our stories, our beliefs, and our value system. I want to teach you how to understand the way that stories have a role to play inside of your client's life and in your own life. So you're going to learn how stories affect the way you see the world. It also affects how you shape the world. So how you perceive the world to be is based on your internal makeup, your internal model of the world that's very personal to you. And when you understand for a client that they have their own model for life and their own mental model that feeds their emotional model and their physical model, then you have a real chance at reshaping what happens for them in the future. Module 3, the Way of the Heart. One of the differences of the Awaken Your Life training program in comparison to other coach trainings is we do an intensive 1.5 months on the emotional life of a client. So I will teach you about core negative emotions, Gestalt threads, navigating an emotional experience, what happens when a client brings up trauma or grief, how to create trauma-informed spaces, how to work with compassion, forgiveness, things like that. Navigating change in your emotional life can mean letting go and changing your relationship to the past. So unlike in a therapy model, where the work, again, would be focused around the emotional experience, inside of coaching, we are focusing on the future, but we're going to bump into the past along the way. You best believe it. And I guarantee when you do, the thing keeping all of those stories in play is a strong emotional bond. Module 4, the way of the ground. Another difference inside of the Awaken Your Life training is that we work with the neuroscience of change. And so my lovely and incredible partner, who is a trained behavioralist through the practice of neuroscience and the coaching of neuroscience, comes alongside and teaches this incredible 2-month module. You're going to learn how to read your physical life as feedback and learn how to navigate change totally from the perspective of the brain. We teach on the threat bucket, the triune brain theory, the 3 orders of operation in which change has to happen in that order every single time, how you perceive data from your outside world, how your sensory system perceives data, and a whole host of other topics. And we'll teach you how to coach around those things as they come up inside your client's life. Module 5, the way of the crown. This is our spiritual module. We spend a month at the end of the program talking about our spiritual life. In this section, you'll learn key concepts about the soul, consciousness, purpose, how to develop a powerful relationship with your intuition, and more. We work with energy systems, the chakra system specifically, and a few other development models. It's not about creating this spiritual centered life if that doesn't light you up, but it is about bringing this greater meaning into the work. You know, that piece of self-actualization, the thing that helps people remember that their life has inherent value and that they matter. We'll talk about that and other topics inside the way of the crown. And then module 6, we wrap up with the business of coaching, which happens in a 5-day retreat that is on the Oregon coast. That's at the end of the program. We spend those days working on your business, as well as you getting to teach a culmination project as a way to graduate the program at the end. In addition to that 4-day opening retreat and that closing retreat, we have monthly private coaching with me. There's peer practicum classes once a month, guest teachers, and so much more. This is a packed, and I mean packed training. This spring will be my 5th cohort. It's one of my favorite programs I get to teach, and we do it with a really small group. So I am looking for 6 students at most for the spring cohort. We have 2 spots left if it is of interest to you. And given the extent of the world events that are happening right now because of COVID-19, that 4-day opening to the program is going to be virtual. So if you're worried about travel or having to be somewhere, don't worry about it. It's all going to be done via Zoom those first 4 days, and then we'll come together at the end of the program. All right, your turn. I want you to try on one of the 5 more powerful questions on how does that make you feel that you learned in today's Monday message. In addition, if you have any interest in Awaken Your Life, the next step is for you and I to have a conversation. Super lighthearted, but I would love to engage with you if that is something that has been on your radar. If you're just curious, those conversations are non-obligatory, which means you don't have to enroll. We just get to talk about the program and see if it's a good fit for you. You can reach out to me privately or post a comment below and I'll come alongside. All right, guys, happy Monday. I'll see you in the community. Take care.